The first sound Queen Alara heard was her own breath breaking. It came too fast, too sharp, unworthy of a crown. Chains scraped against stone below the balcony, and the sound cut through the sunlit courtyard like a blade. Alara tightened her fingers around the gold railing, forcing herself not to step back. A queen did not flinch. Below her stood the final candidates, prisoners really, offerings sent by rival worlds as symbols of peace. Tall warriors with plated armor, horned generals with glowing eyes, beings bred for conquest and terror. And one human. He was kneeling, his wrists bound in plain iron, no armor, no weapons. Just a dark coat worn at the seams, and boots stained with old dust. Alara frowned despite herself. That one does not belong here. The court had warned her. Humans were fragile, short-lived, useful only as merchants or translators. Choosing one as a royal bond would be an insult to the throne. Yet the human had met her eyes. Not with hunger, not with fear. With something worse. Acceptance. The nobles murmured behind her. Silk brushed silk, jeweled fingers pointed. Is that a servant? Someone whispered. Perhaps a mistake. Alara lifted her chin, blue eyes cold and steady. She was dressed in ceremonial blue and gold, the heavy fabric pressing against her shoulders like the weight of history. The crown sat firm on her head, gemstones catching the sun. She had not slept in 3 nights. The choice ceremony was older than the city itself. To secure peace, the queen would bind herself to a champion from beyond the realm. Strength ensured survival. Alara had always believed that. Until now. The human's name was spoken by the herald, voice echoing across the courtyard. Adam of Earths. No titles, no lineage. Just a name. Adam lowered his head again, as if the sound alone had exhausted him. Alara's jaw tightened. Why did you look at me like that? She turned slightly, keeping her voice low. Chancellor Rook, she said. The old man leaned close, careful not to be seen advising her. Majesty, he murmured, you must not hesitate. The horned general from Karos would crush our enemies. The Silver Knight commands a fleet. Alara did not look away from the human. And the human, she asked. Rook hesitated, that was answer enough. He was included as a courtesy, the Chancellor said. His world requested representation. A courtesy. Adam shifted on his knees. One of the guards shoved him forward, too rough. Adam caught himself before falling, shoulders stiffening. Alara felt something twist in her chest. Anger sharp and unwelcome. She raised her hand. The courtyard fell silent. Every soldier froze. Every noble leaned forward. Alara descended the steps alone. Each footstep echoed. She stopped in front of the line. The horned general bared his teeth in a grin meant to impress. The Silver Knight knelt with perfect form. Adam did neither. He stayed still, head bowed, jaw tight. Alara studied him closely now. There were scars on his hands, old ones faded, the kind earned slowly. His breathing was controlled, but his shoulders trembled just enough to betray strain. Not fear. Containment. Alara's pulse quickened. Look at me, she said. Her voice carried authority honed by war and loss. Adam obeyed. His eyes were brown, plain, human. But something ancient moved behind them, like a storm held back by sheer will. Alara forgot how to speak for a heartbeat. No glow, no magic. Just pressure, as if the air itself leaned away from him. A noble laughed nervously behind her. Alara, the Chancellor hissed, this is not wise. She did not turn. Adam of Earth, she said slowly, do you know why you are here? Yes, he answered. His voice was calm, too calm. And you kneel willingly. Yes. A pause. Why? Adam's gaze did not waver. Because if I stand, he said quietly, someone will get hurt. The courtyard went still. Ilara's breath caught. She felt it then, a warning crawling up her spine, the instinct that had saved her life more times than she could count. She straightened and made a decision that would shake the world. "I choose him," Queen Ilara said. Gasps erupted. Shouts followed. The ground trembled once. Adam closed his eyes. Somewhere deep beneath the palace, something ancient woke up. Silence did not fall. It shattered. Voices exploded across the courtyard. Nobles shouted. Generals roared in anger. Steel scraped as soldiers shifted their grips, uncertain who they were meant to protect now. Queen Ilara did not move. Her eyes stayed on Adam. He still knelt, but the ground beneath him had cracked. Fine lines spread through the stone like veins, stopping just short of Ilara's boots. No force had been seen, no magic spoken. It had simply happened. The Chancellor rushed forward, face pale. "Majesty, this is madness," Rook said. "You felt it too, whatever he is." "Enough," Ilara said. Her voice cut through the noise like a bell. The soldiers obeyed instantly. Formation snapped back into place. Discipline returned, though fear lingered in their eyes. Ilara stepped closer to Adam. "Rise," she said. He hesitated. For the first time, something like worry crossed his face. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. That question struck her harder than any blade. "Yes," she replied. Adam stood. The pressure hit. It was not wind, not heat. It was presence. Ilara felt it push against her chest, heavy and vast, like standing too close to a deep ocean at night. Her instincts screamed danger, but beneath that fear was something else. Control. Perfect, deliberate control. The Horned General snarled and stepped forward. His massive frame dwarfed Adam, shadows curling around his claws. "This creature is an insult," the general growled. "Let him prove his worth, let him face me." Before Ilara could speak, Adam moved. He turned. Just turned. The general froze mid-step. Muscles locked, snarl died in his throat. His knees slammed into the stone with a thunderous crack. Shock rippled through the court. Adam did not touch him. Did not speak. He simply looked. The general trembled like prey caught by something far higher on the food chain. His eyes rolled back, breath coming in panicked gasps. Ilara felt cold spread through her veins. "Adam," she said sharply. He looked back at her instantly. The pressure vanished. The general collapsed, unconscious, smoke rising faintly from his armor as if it had been crushed from the inside. Adam lowered his head. "I warned you," he said softly. "I asked to stay kneeling." Ilara stared at him. For the first time since her coronation, she did not know what to say. Guards rushed forward, but she lifted a hand. "No," she ordered, "leave him." The nobles backed away as Adam stood beside her. Not behind, not ahead. Beside. She turned and walked toward the palace. After a moment, Adam followed. Each step he took made servants flinch. Chandeliers rattled faintly. Birds burst from the towers in frantic clouds. Inside the palace hall, the great doors closed with a boom. The noise faded. Ilara finally let herself breathe. She faced him. "What are you?" she asked. Adam considered the question. "Tired," he answered. Her lips parted despite herself. "That was not humor," she said. "No," he agreed, "but it helps people cope." She studied his face closely now. The lines of exhaustion, the careful stillness, the way his hands clenched as if holding something back. "You could have killed him," she said. "Yes." "And you chose not to." "Yes." "Why?" Adam looked away. "Because I promised myself I would never enjoy it again." The words sent a chill through her. Ilara stepped closer. "You did not come here to rule," she said. No. To conquer. No. To be chosen. A pause. No, he said quietly. Then why accept? Adam met her eyes. Because your world is standing on the edge of something worse than war, he said. And if I had not been chosen, someone else would have forced me to stand. Alara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. You are afraid of yourself, she said. Yes. The admission felt heavy, honest, dangerous. She straightened her shoulders. You are under my protection now, she said, by law and by crown. Adam's expression softened, just a fraction. Then I will try, he said, to be worthy of it. Deep within the palace, stone groaned. Something ancient shifted again. And far beyond the city walls, beings who watched worlds tremble began to look away from Alara's realm. Not in fear, in caution. Night came quickly, carrying with it a chill that seemed unnatural for the city. Lanterns flickered across the palace walls, casting long, shivering shadows. Alara walked the marble halls with Adam at her side, still trying to understand the man she had chosen. He did not speak much, and when he did, his words were measured. She noticed the way he studied every corner, every servant, every shadow, as if danger could appear from even the softest whisper of wind. I thought humans were fragile, a voice said from behind her. Alara turned sharply. The Silver Knight had returned. His polished armor gleamed even in the dim light, and his eyes were fixed on Adam with open disdain. You underestimated him, Alara said coldly, and you misjudge me if you think my choice is yours to question. The knight's jaw tightened. Majesty, this human is not one of us, he cannot. Adam stepped forward, not aggressively, not threateningly, but the air around him seemed to hum with restrained force. The knight stopped mid-step. The palace stones beneath him trembled faintly. Alara swallowed hard. She had seen this before, what Adam could do, but it never failed to unsettle her. Even now, she could feel it pressing at the edges of her mind, a silent warning that he was far beyond mortal reckoning. Leave him, she said. Her voice was final, but beneath it, her pulse raced. The knight hesitated, then bowed stiffly, retreating. Once the hall was empty, Adam exhaled, a low sound that carried fatigue she had never heard from a man so strong. You're not like anyone I've ever met, she said softly. You scare everyone, and yet I feel safer with you than I do with my own guards. Adam's eyes flicked toward hers, brief and unguarded. Power isn't protection. People think it is. It is, not always, but choices can be. She nodded, sensing there was more he wanted to say. But the palace was restless tonight. Whispers floated through the halls, rumors of shadows moving where shadows should not. Before she could ask, a sudden chill swept the room. Candles flickered and died, leaving the hallway dim. A shadow detached itself from the far wall. Alara froze. Adam's body shifted subtly, like a predator sensing prey. Stay behind me, he said, his voice quiet but firm. The shadow grew, dark, fluid, impossibly fast. It struck without warning. Servants screamed in the distance, though Alara was too close to move. Adam's hands moved. No weapon appeared, no spell was cast. The shadow recoiled as if struck by an invisible wall. He stepped forward, and the hall seemed to bend slightly around him. The shadow hissed, a sound like tearing metal, and shrank back into the corners. Alara's breath came in shallow gasps. What is that? Adam didn't answer. His eyes, calm and unblinking, scanned the hall as if weighing every possibility. Then he knelt briefly, placing a hand on the cold stone. The shadow shrieked again, a sound of pure malice, and fled entirely. He rose slowly, and for a moment he looked human, exhausted, tired, but something deeper still burned in his eyes. Alara, he said softly, voice carrying both warning and reassurance, your world is full of things you don't see. I can't stop all of them, but I can stop what comes closest. Alara felt a shiver run through her, a mix of awe and fear. She realized fully for the first time that the human she had chosen was more than just strong. He carried weight, ancient, unimaginable weight, and yet he carried it willingly, without arrogance, without pride. Why? She asked. The word escaped in a whisper, almost afraid of the answer. Adam looked at her directly. Because someone has to, because if not me, then it falls to you, to everyone, and you wouldn't survive it. For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Only the dying candlelight flickered, casting the shadows of two figures standing side by side against the marble walls. Ilara realized something terrifying and beautiful. She had chosen not just a protector, but a force unlike anything the kingdom had ever known. A being whose quiet restraint held more power than armies, more danger than any warlord, and yet more humanity than she could have imagined. And suddenly, she understood that the crown she wore did not just make her queen. It made her witness to something beyond her world's understanding. A faint creak echoed from the palace ceiling. Ilara's heart jumped. Shadows stirred again. Something, larger and darker than the last, was moving closer. Adam's hand brushed hers, light and grounding. "Stay with me," he said. She nodded, feeling a strange mix of terror and trust. Because she knew in that moment that nothing would ever be the same. And the palace had yet to see the true extent of what had just awakened. Morning came slowly, crawling through the palace windows like cautious fingers. The city below gleamed in the sun, but inside the walls, silence weighed heavier than stone. Ilara sat alone in her private chambers, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She had chosen a human, a fragile-looking man among titans and warriors, yet somehow, she had never felt so unsteady. Adam moved like a shadow at her side, calm, composed, impossibly strong, but she could feel the echoes of the previous night's confrontation in her chest. The doors opened without sound. Adam entered carrying nothing but his own presence. "You've slept," she said, though her voice was weak. She was trying to seem composed, but the memory of the shadow and his control over it had left her restless. He shook his head. "Not really." Ilara's blue eyes narrowed. "You didn't sleep because of last night." Adam's expression softened. "I sleep when the world allows it. Last night, the world didn't." She studied him, noticing the faint lines beneath his eyes, the subtle tension in his jaw. He appeared calm, almost human, but she knew better. Humans weren't supposed to move like that, to make entire halls shiver with presence. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why you, why not the generals, the knights they could have?" "Could have destroyed everything," Adam interrupted gently. "I could have too, but I didn't." Ilara leaned back, the ornate chair creaking under her. "And yet last night, you terrified them. Even the soldiers, my own soldiers, looked at you like you were a god." Adam gave a small, humorless smile. "I'm not a god, I'm a human, but humans, we have limits you can't always see. We survive by choosing carefully when to act and when to hold back." Ilara's chest tightened. She had always believed strength was measured in armies, in magic, in skill. But Adam had just shown her an entirely new measure, a silent, contained, deliberate might that could bend the world without raising a blade. "Then I chose correctly," she said, almost to herself. Adam tilted his head. "You chose wisely, but wisely is not the same as safely, and the court, they will not understand." The words hit harder than she expected. Ilara had not considered the politics, the whispers, the jeers that would follow her choice. She had only seen him, had only felt the truth of him. "I don't care what the court thinks," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. "I care about this kingdom surviving, and about you surviving." Adam's gaze softened just a fraction. "Then we have a long road ahead," he said. Before she could respond, a distant crash echoed through the palace. A servant stumbled into the room, eyes wide with fear. "Your Majesty, shadows in the eastern halls, they—" Adam was already moving. Faster than she thought possible, he was at the door, hand gripping her arm gently but firmly. "Stay close," he ordered. The corridors of the palace twisted into darkness. Candles flickered and died. The walls themselves seemed to lean inward, shadows stretching unnaturally long. Ilara felt a cold grip of panic, but Adam's presence grounded her, a steady pulse amidst chaos. They reached the eastern hall. The air was thick with a darkness that seemed alive. Shapes moved within it, shapes that whispered threats in voices no human could survive hearing. Soldiers had already fallen back, weapons shaking in their hands. Adam stepped forward, nothing in his hands, nothing in his armor, just him. And the shadows recoiled. Not like last night, not completely, but enough to show that even in darkness he commanded power beyond the imaginable. "Queen Alara," he said, voice low, "do not step forward, this is mine to bear." Her instinct screamed to protest, but something in his eyes, fear, yes, but also determination, kept her rooted. She realized fully for the first time the weight of what she had chosen. He did not need a crown to command loyalty, nor a sword to bend reality. The shadows writhed, and then in one motion Adam raised his hand. The darkness convulsed, shrieking in a sound that tore at her bones. The floor cracked, a faint blue light tracing the fractures. And then silence. When it was over, Adam turned slowly. His coat was singed, dust clung to his boots, but his stance was unbroken. Alara's voice barely whispered, trembling with awe. How do you carry all that?" He shook his head almost bitterly. "By remembering why it matters, by choosing what I can touch and what I must leave alone." Her pulse raced, heart caught between fear and something else. Admiration, trust, and a strange warmth that spread through her chest. She realized that she had just witnessed a man who could have ruled or destroyed entire worlds with a thought, yet chose restraint. And now, that restraint was hers to depend on. Alara stepped closer. "Then we fight together," she said, "and whatever comes, we survive it." Adam's lips quirked, faint but real, almost human. Together. Far above, the palace towers trembled faintly, as if the city itself recognized the awakening of a force it could never hope to control. And far beyond the walls, the eyes of distant worlds turned toward Alara's kingdom. They saw not just a queen, but a human beside her who made even gods pause. Something monumental had begun. And nothing would ever be the same. By midday, the city was alive with whispers. Couriers raced through the streets carrying rumors, and even the air seemed heavy with anticipation. Queen Alara moved through the palace gardens, a rare moment of solitude, but Adam walked beside her, silent yet alert, like a shadow tethered to her side. "Do you ever rest?" she asked, watching the way his gaze swept the horizon, analyzing everything. Adam shook his head. "Not when danger lingers." His voice was quiet but firm. "Rest is a luxury for those who are safe." Alara frowned, not fully understanding. "And you are safe." He smiled faintly, the kind that did not reach his eyes. "I am never truly safe, but I am here, and that matters." Her chest tightened at the weight of his words. She had chosen him without understanding the full measure of what she had asked of him. And now, she felt the gravity of that choice pressing down. Before she could speak further, a sudden commotion erupted from the northern gate. Soldiers shouted, horses screamed, smoke curled from the city outskirts. Adam's body tensed, coiled like a spring. "Stay behind me," he said. Alara hesitated, but instinct and trust rooted her to his side. Together, they moved toward the chaos. Outside the palace walls, marauders, creatures of shadow and flame, attacked. They were not human, not entirely, with twisted forms that shifted and flickered unnaturally. The city's guards engaged, but it was clear they were outmatched. Adam stepped forward, nothing in his hands, nothing in his coat, and yet the ground trembled beneath him as though the earth itself recognized his presence. The creatures halted, sensing something greater than swords or shields. One lunged forward, fire flickering along its claws. Adam's gaze met it, and the creature froze midair as if the very air had become chains. With a quiet step, Adam moved, and the creature fell to the ground, unconscious, no one touching it. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. Every action, every restraint, every silent command he gave to the world around him made her realize this human was more than a warrior. He was a force of nature. The battle lasted minutes, but to Alara it felt like hours. Shadows twisted and roared, soldiers fell back, but Adam moved with calm precision. He saved lives without striking a single blow, bending the battlefield to his will with invisible hands. When the last of the creatures vanished, Alara finally allowed herself to breathe. Her guards were shaken but alive. Civilians were protected. The city had survived. She turned to Adam, words failing her. He stood there, calm and steady, the faintest hint of weariness in his posture. "You," she began, but no words seemed adequate. "You've done what no army could." He looked at her then, brown eyes steady, unflinching. "I only did what needed to be done, that is all." Ilara felt something shift within her, a bond deeper than words, forged in fire and shadow. She realized that she had not just chosen a protector, but someone who understood responsibility at a level she could scarcely comprehend. "You carry so much," she whispered, "and yet you choose to protect us." Adam tilted his head, faintly amused. "Choices define us more than power, Your Majesty. I could have walked away, but I did not. That is all that matters." Ilara reached out, touching his arm lightly. The warmth of human flesh reassured her in a way nothing else could. "Then let me help. Let me stand with you." For the first time, Adam allowed a small smile. "You already do. By choosing me, you chose not just survival, but a chance at something stronger, something worth protecting." A servant appeared, bowing quickly. "Your Majesty, the council awaits. They wish to discuss the attack." Ilara nodded, glancing at Adam. He gave a slight shrug. "I'll remain with you. Let them talk. We handle what matters first." As they walked toward the council hall, side by side, the city itself seemed to exhale. Somewhere deep in the palace, hidden chambers vibrated faintly, sensing the bond between human and queen. Ilara knew without doubt that whatever came next, political maneuvering, war, betrayal, she would not face it alone. And Adam, he was not just a shield or a sword. He was the quiet storm that could bend the impossible to their side. For the first time in her life, Ilara understood what true strength could look like. And the city, the kingdom, and perhaps the world, would never forget the day the human she chose became something far more than anyone could imagine. From the shadows beyond the palace walls, eyes watched, calculating, intrigued, fearful. Forces that had slept for centuries were stirring, sensing the rise of a human who could rival gods themselves. And far above, the queen's blue eyes met his brown ones, unspoken understanding passing between them. They were bound now, not by duty, not by law, but by choice. And nothing in the realms, known or unknown, would ever challenge that bond lightly. The council chamber smelled of wax and tension. Heavy wooden tables were carved with symbols of past kings, and the high windows let in strips of sunlight that fell across Ilara's golden crown. She sat at the center, Adam quietly at her side, his presence enough to silence the murmurs before she spoke. "Report," she commanded. A tall advisor cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the northern attack, while contained, was clearly the work of outside forces, creatures beyond our knowledge." Ilara's gaze drifted briefly to Adam. She did not need him to explain. She had seen his control, the calm that could tame chaos. But the council would not see that. They would only see fear. Another advisor, younger and eager, leaned forward. "Majesty, choosing a human as your champion was a grave mistake. We should have selected a warrior of our world, someone capable." Ilara's jaw tightened. Her blue eyes glinted like steel. "Adam saved this city. Do you understand? He saved every one of you, every life in these walls, without striking a single blow." A low murmur ran through the council. Some nodded, but others, faces darkened with envy and doubt. The eldest council member, Lord Varys, finally spoke, voice smooth but sharp. "Majesty, a human's strength cannot be relied upon. We respect your choice, but what if he fails? What if his restraint falters?" Ilara leaned forward, voice cold. "Do you think I chose a child? He is no ordinary man, and if you cannot see that, perhaps you are unfit to serve this kingdom." A tense silence followed. Adam remained still, his brown eyes calm, steadying like an anchor in a storm. No one dared interrupt him, not yet. Varys' lips twitched. "Majesty, you risk the throne on a human's whims." Adam's head lifted slowly. The air shifted, and Ilara felt the same pressure from before, quiet but undeniable. "You mistake calm for whim," he said. His voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on the council, each word deliberate, heavy with intent. "I am not here for whim. I am here because it is necessary, and anyone who doubts that is already in danger." The room shivered. Some council members staggered slightly, clutching the edges of the tables. Even Varys paled. Alara felt pride, tempered with fear. Every day with Adam was a balance between awe and the realization that his restraint was absolute, but fragile in its own way. And yet, Varys said, trying to regain control, we must consider the ramifications. Other realms will see this as weakness. They will think. They will see truth, Adam interrupted, voice low but unwavering. They will see a human who chooses restraint over destruction and a queen who chooses wisdom over tradition. They will see strength that doesn't need blood to command respect. Alara's heart raced. She had felt it herself, the way the northern attackers had faltered simply because Adam willed it, the way even her guards, seasoned and battle-hardened, had trembled before him. Varys swallowed hard, and if that restraint fails... Adam's gaze sharpened. Then we face it together, but it will not fail, not because I am strong, because I will not allow it. And you, he swept his eyes over the council members, you will either follow the Queen's judgment or step aside. A murmur of shock ran through the chamber. Some dared not look at him directly. Alara's chest swelled. The man beside her choice, was more than she had dared to hope. Stronger than armies, smarter than generals, and loyal, impossibly loyal. She stood, crown heavy but steady. You see him now, she said, voice ringing through the chamber. This is the man I chose. This is the strength we will follow, not fear, not envy, not petty tradition. The council remained silent, some still shaken, some plotting, but none dared to challenge her openly. Adam stepped closer to her, hand brushing hers briefly, a gesture so small, yet so grounding. She felt the warmth of him, human and real, yet carrying the weight of worlds. Majesty, he whispered, so only she could hear, I will protect this kingdom, and I will protect you, nothing else matters. Alara met his gaze, feeling a swell of emotions she could not name, respect, awe, relief, and something warmer, something dangerous. Outside, the city stirred unaware of the tension within. But beyond the walls, distant shadows were watching, measuring, waiting. Forces that had slept for centuries were shifting, sensing the rise of a human who could rival gods. Alara turned back to the council, voice sharp and unwavering. We move forward, together or not at all, dismissed. The council shuffled reluctantly, muttering under their breath, but the queen's words, and the presence beside her, left no room for doubt. In the quiet that followed, Adam stood beside her, calm and steady. And in that quiet, Alara realized something terrifying and wonderful. The man she had chosen was no mere protector. He was a storm contained within a human shell, a force that could decide the fate of kingdoms, and she would stand beside him no matter the cost. And somewhere far beyond, the true enemies began to stir, sensing the bond between human and queen that even gods would hesitate to challenge. The reckoning had only just begun. Night fell over the city like a velvet cloak, yet the palace shone bright, its golden spires cutting through the darkness. Queen Alara stood on her balcony, the wind tugging at her dress, the crown heavy on her head, but her gaze was fixed on the horizon. Adam was beside her, silent, calm, but she could feel the tremor in the air that followed him everywhere. Do you ever wonder, she asked softly, what comes next? Adam's brown eyes scanned the city below, then the distant forests and mountains beyond. Every day, the world isn't waiting for us to be ready. Her fingers brushed against his coat, and yet we survived together. He gave a faint smile, just enough to be human, and turned his attention to the distant shadows creeping along the outskirts. Survival is only the first step. The real challenge is shaping what comes after, and the first lesson is trust. Alara nodded, feeling the weight of his words. He had saved the city, controlled darkness that should have devoured everything, and yet he bore it with quiet restraint. She realized that true power was not in wielding destruction, but in carrying it without letting it consume you. A sudden shout broke the stillness. From the palace gates, soldiers ran, faces pale with fear. Alara's pulse quickened. Adam was already moving, stepping forward, the ground seeming to hum beneath his boots. The wind shifted. Shadows rose from the walls like living smoke, writhing and twisting with intent. The creatures from last night were back, but stronger, faster, smarter. They moved with precision now, as if learning from their failure. Adam turned, hand brushing lightly against Alara. "Stay close." They moved together through the palace courtyard. Adam's presence seemed to warp the very air, and the shadows faltered at his approach. But there were too many, and they pressed forward, tendrils of darkness curling toward them, testing every barrier. Alara drew her dagger, but Adam shook his head. "Not yet, let me." And then he acted, not with force, not with weapons, but with sheer will. The shadows twisted and hissed, striking the ground with invisible blows, but Adam met each one with calm, controlled resistance. The air vibrated with a silent energy that bent reality around him. Alara watched in awe as he moved. His restraint was perfect, deliberate. Each shadow that lunged toward the city was met and held, frozen in place until it shrieked and dissipated. No one else could have done it, not the generals, not the soldiers, not any weapon forged by man or magic. Only Adam. Finally, the courtyard fell silent. Only the faintest smoke lingered where the shadows had been. Soldiers looked at him with wide eyes, awe and fear mingling in their expressions. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. You saved us again." Adam shook his head. "I do what must be done, that is all, but this is only the beginning. There are forces that will not stop, and they will not wait for us to be ready." She placed her hand on his arm. The warmth of it grounded her. "Then we will be ready, together." Adam's gaze met hers, and for the first time there was no restraint in his eyes, only resolve. "Together," he repeated. The wind carried whispers through the city, rumors of the human beside the queen who commanded forces beyond comprehension. And far away, in lands untouched by their eyes, powerful beings paused, sensing the rise of something extraordinary. Alara realized fully now what she had done. She had chosen a man not for strength she could see, but for strength she could feel. A human who could bend fate itself without cruelty, who carried power and restraint in equal measure. And in that moment, the queen understood something deeper than authority, deeper than fear or politics. She was not alone. Not in leadership, not in survival, not in the battle against what would come. Adam stepped closer, hand brushing hers once more. "We face the world as it is," he said, "and whatever comes, we survive it together." Alara smiled, a mixture of relief and awe, and for the first time she did not feel the weight of the crown. She felt the weight of choice, of partnership, of a bond forged in fire, shadow, and courage. Above the city, stars blinked down like witnesses. A kingdom had awakened, not just through its queen, but through the human she had chosen. And far beyond the horizon, the forces that had slumbered for centuries began to stir, sensing a storm they could not ignore. Queen Alara tightened her grip on Adam's arm, and he responded with the faintest nod. Together they faced the dark, the unknown, and the impossible. And the world knew in that moment that it had witnessed something extraordinary. A human beside a queen, a bond that no power, no shadow, and no god could break. The awakening had begun, and nothing would ever be the same.